You notice I still have some of my props here. These props really don't work out that great. But anyways, the movie, as you can see from the title screen and things like that, this was a 3D style movie in the early 80s, which I actually have no idea if this was effective or not. Actually, I wasn't even born when this movie was made. But it's another one of those gimmicky things, and there's different parts of the movie, like the yo-yo, holding out the eye, the snake coming out of the... I don't know who keeps snakes in wire pens, but anyways, it doesn't really matter. Let's see, Harold's wife at the beginning. I like Harold. There's something about Harold that I like, but his wife is such a nag. Like, this poor guy. She gets on him about eating donuts, and like she bitches about the laundry. Although I don't, it's just hanging on the hook. I don't know what she's bitching at him about. And it's strange because they have a produce shop in the middle of nowhere, which I'm not saying doesn't make sense, because where I go in the summer, there's places where you can kind of drive up and go to the local farm or whatever. But it seems like she's kind of a bitch, but she's also kind of looking out for Harold. By the way, they sell fish food at this produce store, which kind of seemed a little bit odd to me, but I guess if you got fish up there, you need to go someplace. But he tastes the fish food, and this is kind of what I wanted to bring up. Anybody who has fish that's watching this, I know you've tasted that food. Fish food actually isn't that bad. And anybody that's going to write in the comments section, I have fish, there's cars in the forest. Anybody that's watching this video that has fish at home and you feed the fish, I guarantee you've tried that fish food. Don't lie. I know you have, because I have too. Shit, I've tried like gerbil food. I'm not kidding, actually. Never mind what I've tried in terms of food, but you've tried it too. I'm doing part 3 and not parts 4, 5, and 6 in this one. You'd think I'd tie this in with part 4 because it's part of the original series. But I ain't get to the Jarvis trilogy, as I call it later on. I call this the Dawn of Jason because despite his being in part 2, he donned the mask for the first time. So I really consider this the birth of Jason as we know him, at least in the series. That being said, let me give a quick rundown of the movie as fast as I can before I get to my thoughts. So, this is what I thought. Or this is the summary. So, the movie starts out like, remember part 2? And we're like, yeah. They're like, check it out again. We're like, okay, cool. Part 3, please? Teens pack into this van and they're like, man, can't wait to get to Crystal Lake. Nothing bad ever happens there. So, in this movie, where nobody wipes after pooping, they're like, let's go to the summer house. Who knows how close it is to Camp Blood? Doesn't matter. And they're like, sweet, this is the life. They drive there and there's this old man. He's like, yeah, I'm a creep. And the kids are like, man, let's go. Hate when people sleep in the middle of the road with eyeballs. Let's move on with the rest of our day. Then they're like coupled together, obviously, so sex is obviously going to take place. Except for Chris, she's like doing the whole 40 days and 40 nights thing or whatever the fuck. So obviously Jason kills everyone, and then he goes after Chris. He takes an axe to the head. He's like, I don't give a fuck. And then decides, screw it. I'll just wait until part 4. I hate Corey Feldman, and I hate the Goonies. And yes, I'm aware that movie came out after, but that's roughly the plot, so let's just roll on with what I thought about the movie. Just to say, if anybody's curious how long it takes to cook a hot dog over tea candles, it's a very long time, so don't do that when you can't. You just make a fire. But Harold, like I was saying, I really like the guy, but what's the deal with him on the toilet? Like, he's inquiring about something, but he doesn't bother wiping, which, by the way, listen to the sound of this dump. Okay, that's greasy. So please wipe. That's disgusting. And Chuck too. I mean, he comes out. Maybe he didn't start his movie. Anyways, let's not get into the details of that. But what's the deal? Anyways, so Harold's wife gets nixed. Cool. I don't know why she thought it was. She had the needles in her hands knitting, and then all of a sudden one went missing. Like, whatever. Anyway, she gets nixed. I felt bad for Harold, man. Poor guy. He seems like such a nice guy. He gets, a butcher knife in the chest. I don't know where he got that butcher knife from. That's a good question. Another thing that I kind of find weird is why in the hell did they eat, like, Andy and stuff? Why did they even bother bringing Shelley? Like, he even says, you're my roommate, I like you, but you're a jerk and all this. Everybody else, like, he's such an outcast throughout the whole movie. And then they set him up on a date that is so obviously not going to work out. I mean, it's shallow, but Shelley looks like it's Pat from Saturday Night Live. I don't know how many of you remember this skit, but that's what he looks like. and you're gonna set this up where he's gonna try to go after Vera. Well, Vera is shallow herself and doesn't see past much. You know, to be fair, she only knows the guy for like a day, and she's not attracted to him. But why set this guy up for obvious failure? Like, of course she's not going to be interested in this guy. He's some weirdo that looks like it's Pat, and he has a box full of shit that's his world. I'll get to that part too. Man, poor guy. And then the van with all that smoke coming out of the van. Like, it's like the van's on fire, okay? That's ridiculous that they're only smoking like 2 joints, and you're telling me it produced that much smoke? You can get that much smoke. There's like 8 guys smoking cigars in there, so it's ridiculous. And then once they get in the van, it's relatively cleared up, so that's kind of funny. Shelley, like I was saying before, this line with Vera.
What do you got in there?
My whole world.
And that little thing?
Stick around. You'll see.
Man, don't say my whole world is in a box. That is the most fucking creepy thing I can. Well, it's not creepy. It's just, how do you expect to impress this girl? It's like saying, just like she's saying, what are your interests? Like, you know what's special about me? You wouldn't believe the collection of Star Wars figures I don't even have out of the package yet. Yeah, you dig me, babe? You dig me? You like Star Wars? Like, man, just fucking save it. Actually, I would have suggested just leaving all that home. I don't think he had a chance, but anyways, poor Shelley. Oddly enough, Shelley's my mother's name, so it's unisex, like it's Pat, kind of. I just made that connection now. I didn't even write it down. His name is unisex, like it's Pat, but at least he pulls off the fact that he does actually look like a guy. He's not as androgynous as that character. But let's roll on from there. This is kind of working now. So later on in the movie, anyways, Chris is telling him about it the year before. Although the time changes, it goes from like a year to 2 years to 8 months. If you know the movie, it gets kind of obscure. But anyway, so in the previous summer, there's this maniac chasing her through the forest. Debbie's well aware of this, right? Keep in mind, where they're going is in the middle of fucking nowhere, right? Apparently. And so Debbie knows about this guy that chased her through the forest. And she's driving by and she sees where Harold's shop was and his wife's shop. And they're dead, right? Which is obviously a murder. I mean, well, maybe not obviously a murder, but kind of odd when you see police cars around. It's not like somebody had a heart attack. And Debbie's like, don't let your mind wander away, Chris. Just, what is this, the fucking Bronx, where you turn around, there's like shooting here, shooting there. Not that the Bronx is that bad of a place, but it's not like it's commonplace to be out in the middle of nowhere and there's a crime scene. That to me would be a very good reason to be on edge. Remember that guy that was scary? There's no connection there. Oh, by the way, remember the history of the camp and everybody getting murdered? Just ignore, well, actually, the history of it, because this takes place the day after, so the Jason part's different. But nonetheless, I mean, you're in an area where there's all these murders, and she's like, yeah, don't worry about it. Don't let your mind race off with it. And not only that, the one part where, okay, may I ask who would want to see a 3D eyeball up close? When I was watching this, writing this review, I was eating chips, and I almost puked. I'm not kidding. Like, I was eating salt and vinegar chips, I see this eyeball come at me, and I felt sick. So who in the theater eating popcorn is like, yeah, right on, man, an eyeball right in my face, that's appealing? I don't know. So, anyways, Chris shows up at her summer home, which apparently she hasn't been at in a while. Now, why Rick is there anyway? I guess he lives close by, but he's like, I guess he was expecting her. But he hugs her in kind of a spooky, creepy way, like it just showed you probably in a clip. Like, ease up, buddy. And not only that, the story kind of changes where she hasn't been there in 2 years, and then a year, and then he tells her, I haven't seen you in a few months. But regardless, you're assuming, and because they hadn't talked, right? So are you assuming that she's single? Because she's kind of hot, and that may not be the case. Also, I think Rick's in the wrong film, because Rick, again, looks like he's about 45 years old, so I think he missed the boat. He should be in part 1 and part 2, where all the counselors are like getting ready to go to the seniors home. But Another thing I like to talk about is Shelley's prank. I really didn't think it was that bad. I thought everybody overreacted. I mean, why didn't somebody fill him in on, hey, Chris might be sensitive to this? And so just ease up. Like, what is the big fucking deal? He just pulls a little prank. Kind of elaborate. I thought it was actually kind of clever. It's up at camp. A little bit of history up there, so why not have some fun? And everybody freaks out on this guy like he murdered her cat or something like that. So what's weird too is Fox's fascination with this barn. I don't know what everybody's fascination with this barn is. It's just some barn beside a summer home, so whatever. But throughout the movie, you notice all these people like Andy and Debbie and the pot smokers, Chuck and whatever her name is. Anyways, but she goes in and she starts swinging from the rope where they pull up the hay. Like, isn't this supposed to be like kind of like a covert revenge mission because Shelley ran over a bike? And not only that, he ran over your bike. I get it, but you like threaten these people pretty good. And yeah, I'd be mad too, I guess, if you ran over my bike. But you're a bike game, man. So burning down a barn evens the score. Like, barns are expensive. I don't know how much people know about barns, but they used to live in the country. They're expensive, and the shit inside them is worth a lot of money. So that's harsh, dude. Anyways, Loco, he goes into the barn. Ali goes in the barn. They get wiped out really quick. Ali too, man. You can hear the thump. Listen to the thump. Yeah, that's right on his head. They didn't. That's not even like appealing horror sound effects. That's just brutal. That's realistic. That's like thud, thud. Your skull is cracked. And then there's this part here. Look at these two. Like, are they even aware they're in a movie? They either played the best stoners ever, or this was like a shot when they were both taking a nap. I'm not sure. The outhouse smoking pot thing.
Heavy shit.
That would be heavy shit, and if you had that experience while smoking pot just before going to the washroom, I'd suggest that you're probably not smoking pot. That being said, again, Shelley coming out of the water, technically the first person to don the mask that we would all know up until part 4. Actually, up until part 6, I think, because does he give him a new mask? I don't know, I'll have to watch that and figure that out. There's just one part that kind of bugs me. I know this is like super nitpicking. It's just something I noticed. So Vera drops Shelley's wallet into the water. How she got his wallet in the first place, maybe I missed something, but that's a bit of a mystery. But then she goes to get it, which, you know, I feel she's obligated to do. And she walks into the water. There's a canoe right the fuck beside you. Like, don't bother taking off your shoes and wetting your pants. Just get into the canoe, and just. Actually, you just put the canoe at the side of the beach. It's not that far. And just walk over and get it. So she's not the first person I picked to solve a puzzle with. But then Jason comes, and this is pretty cool because it's the first time we see Jason as an icon that we know him as with the mask. And man, I take these films so seriously. He nails literally a bullseye. I know there wasn't a little circle around her eye, but he nails her. And I didn't feel bad whatsoever about Vera's death because, not because of the actress, she did a great job, very attractive, did well. I don't know what the rest of her film career turned out to be, but that character was a bit of a bitch and just never gave Shelley a chance. I know he looked like it's Pat and all that, but that's terrible. And then, so just to briefly go over the characters, what I thought of them. Debbie was really cute. I thought she played it really well. Cool character. Chris, back and forth on. She's kind of a nut and really high stressed, and the acting in it, I think, reflects more of the line she was given than what she's capable of. Rick, I'm going to get to because he's a complete freaking douche through the whole movie. Possibly my most hated character in the entire series. Possibly. I'll have to look at the other films. Andy, they must have did casting at a circus or Cirque du Soleil because he's constantly walking on his hands. And, like, just walk like a normal human being, man. The old guy on the road, big deal. The biker gang, I don't even know why they're a biker gang. Like, who's the rival gang? What are they? Are you trafficking drugs to this one particular store and to cottage people or weapons? Or do you just speed around? Or do you just bully people in convenience stores and shit? Like, Debbie's death, it's a lot like the way Kevin Bacon went out in the first one. So I guess Jason is kind of like mother like son, but she's pregnant, man. And
that's harsh, man.
yeah, that's right, Mike. That's harsh, man. And then there's this other part with Chuck where he's making popcorn, and this is, I don't care if you know this or not, but I like to smoke the odd joint, and this is totally how I'd be making popcorn at like 3 in the morning. You should see, actually, I'm partial to pancakes, so it's actually kind of funny and great to see me make food at like 3 in the morning, which don't tell me you haven't either, because there's a few of you that do the same thing too, you know it, depending on your age and whatever. The stoner girl, I always forget her name, but anyways, Chuck's girlfriend. Not much of a comment on this, but check out her necklace. What's with the boot on the necklace? What's that about? Like, it's got to be the oddest necklace I've seen. It's almost as odd as the necklace. I know this has been commented on in different reviews, and yes, I saw it on AVGN, and I'm not commenting on his comments, but the ridiculous necklace that what's her name is wearing in part 2 when she's walking in just to the school bus. That's what it always reminded me of. Just the most absurd looking necklace you can see. Actually, the one in Child's Play is a little bit more ridiculous. Like, what was it? A big key or something? I don't have the footage in front of me, so when I post it, it may or may not be that. Another thing is, Chris passes out with Jason, or passes out and Jason kind of hunts her through the forest. First of all, why can't anybody run in any of this? Like, it's like they run and they just fall over right away. And Jason's apparently guilty of this, and I guess this is part 3. It's like a story that adds up to part 3, but whatever, it's in the movie. But why did she not die? Like, when Jason got a hold of her and she was unconscious, what did he do to her exactly? Was he like, I'm not making any sexual comments about it, was he getting a little, or, I mean, so I don't know how she survived that, because Jason typically kills everything. And then, so, anyway, the stoner girl, I always forget her name, again, sorry about that, but she wants to scare Shelly, so she picks up a fucking axe to scare, like, easy. You don't have to pick up an axe to scare somebody, like try boo or maybe something harmless like what Shelley didn't bring out a weapon. Well, he kind of did against Vera, but he wasn't picking up axes and like going charging around corners and stuff like that. He's up big. So, and then what's the point of the hay scene where, like, I guess they're establishing that Chris and Rick have some sort of connection, but it's just more of having to put up with this guy Rick, and he's a complete douchebag. So the whole scene is just like, but this one part, who in the hell wears a sweater like this in cottage country? It's like he's getting ready for some, private club in a major city, and he's getting ready to play golf or something like that. And then there's this part, like he looks like he's dressed like Mr. Rogers. Honestly, what is with that? And then finally Rick dies. Good. I actually think it's like when I was saying the first one, I forget the counselor's name, it might have been Steve, I think, and he dies, and because I hated him so much, I made that pretty evident. I think I might hate Rick more. So his eye popping out of his head, as disgusting as that was, and don't get me wrong, I love the practical effect approach to that, as opposed to some CGI nonsense. Like, good. Yeah, I'm glad he's dead too. I'm glad. And the Fox, the woman. This is hilarious, and this is definitely going to date my age. But does she not remind you of Jodie from today's special? Like, check it out.
Today's special, shout it loud and clear. Today's special.
As well, it's a Friday movie, so let's pause for a moment just to check out a couple nice butt shots. Yeah. So Rick gets thrown through the window and Jason's like, yeah, that's your man, what now? As if Rick could do shit anyways. One thing I wanted to comment on, though, is this part here where Jason's trying to get through the door. Have you ever noticed that in every horror movie, the doors and stuff are always made out of cardboard. I've never come across a door, to my knowledge, that was just like double paned with like particle board, but painted over to make it seem like it wasn't. Anyways, this isn't Homes on Homes, but bizarre. And even in H2O, same deal. And then what I did like though was when Chris was hiding in the closet. It's kind of intense. I've always enjoyed that kind of like hiding from the bad guy idea. There are always intense moments. You know, actually, on a side note, one thing that I come across and heard from one of the things that was said by the great Alfred Hitchcock was that it's not the actual horrific event that builds the fear. It's actually everything leading up to it. And there's a part in one of his movies where there's footsteps leading up to a door, and the footsteps create more anxiety and fear than when the door finally opens. And that's why these types of scenes are always very interesting to me, because the anticipation by far exceeds the event that occurs, because then you're in the situation. But the anticipation of the situation is really what you're looking for. And then kudos to Chris for waiting outside the door and clubbing Jason. But being that you've seen somewhat of what he can do and your fear of him, I don't know, maybe take the opportunity to get the hell out of there instead of taking on the guy. I mean, what's the point waiting beside a door just to club him? He's gonna get back up. So just fucking run, man. Just run. You're in the forest too. Pick a direction. It's not like he's a bloodhound, or maybe he is. I don't know. We don't know the extent of Jason's powers. Okay, so I have kind of like, I don't know if it's a theory, but a weird little observation. When they're driving down the road, they're heading towards Chris's summer home or whatever the case might be. They're in the van, and these cops are like speeding behind them, trying to, it looks like they're trying to catch up to them, and they're panicking. They're like, they're onto the pot. And how in the world would cops know that there's a van down the highway with people smoking pot in it? First of all, there's not like a ton of smoke like in the previous scene coming out. They're smoking like one joint, whatever. There's no way. So unless the kid's like playing baseball on that street, like narked on them, that seems a little far-fetched. So I don't know why they just didn't pull over or slow down or just ignore the situation. But it's the States. I live in Canada. It's a little bit more liberal, so they just pull you over, give you like a $100 fine, and say, don't smoke pot when you get there. I know it's a different situation, especially back in the early 80s. Although it was kind of a liberal. Anyways, and all that. Why were the cops speeding in the first place? Like the couple, Harold and whatever his wife's name was, I don't think they gave it out. They're already dead. What are you racing for? The only thing I could figure is maybe they were going to look for Jason, like they thought the murderer is still there, so it's important to get there as fast as possible. But then that perplexes me even more, because why did you not bother searching maybe the forest around that? Like, how far away is the store from Chris's summer home? I mean, you might want to look there, and apparently Chris's summer home isn't too far away from Camp Crystal Lake, I would imagine. In other words, unless Jason's making like serious treks, which he's not, because we saw him at Camp Forest Green and all that stuff. It's obviously in whatever the hell, I forget the name of the town. But anyways, like Chris's summer farm is like down the road, so I don't know, man. Like, what the fuck? Okay, so as my fire is winding down here, you hear that? I'm not alone. Out in my room / whatever. Who even cares when I'm trying to prop up here? But I like the idea that Jason can be put down. And that's a very interesting thing. I like the idea of a bad guy being able to put down. You got a little bit too invincible later on. I'll get into that as I move along in the franchise series, the franchise as the sequels come out. As well, just to recap this movie, I'd like to say that it's definitely one of the strongest movies in the entire series. It's part of the Classic Four. I'm going to get to the whole Jarvis thing later and try to make it as compact as possible because I'm tackling 3 films in one video. But to wrap this up shortly, because I tend to ramble at the end of my... actually, there's one thing I do want to address, which I thought was kind of odd. Just before I end this, the food stamps in the convenience store I don't want to get into the whole snap food thing that the United States did in the early 70s, late 60s, or whatever it was. But why are you using food stamps? Like, I mean, you're going to a cottage home. I'm assuming they have a little bit of money, or else you wouldn't have that type of property, that amount of equity without having some sort of money. Plus, Shelley had money on him, so I didn't understand the uses. You could use some food stamps, or why they would even be giving them. Maybe if you're her family, I don't know. But overall, if I had to give a rating, it's probably a 6 out of 10 horror movie. I'd give it maybe a 7 out of 10 horror movie in reference to the series itself. Probably an 8 or an 8.5. It's part of the classic series. I'd say actually parts 1 through 5 have some. I know 5 is a bit ball of wax, but after that, it takes on a totally new field, and Jason becomes a totally new character in my mind. So thanks a lot for tuning in to part 2. Part 3 is coming out in a little while. In reference to the Q&As, I'm answering some of your questions as I go along, but I'm going to hold off on all of your things, on all of your questions, and get to it after the franchise review is done, because I was looking at some of the questions, and some of them I can't really answer until you see the whole franchise review, and then everything will make sense with my perspective on it. Otherwise, I'm jumping ahead, and it may or may not make sense, depending on how many films you've seen to people have seen. So let me wrap this up. Look at that in the background. He's around. There's somebody here. I should carry a gun. But anyways, thanks a lot. We'll see you in part 2. I guess I'm going to wrap up. That's the only thing I've had to eat today, believe it or not. And I'll see you then. So, not part 2. I'll see you in part 3. I get everything wrong. See you in part 3. Thanks for watching part 2. Take care and watch yourself in the woods this summer. Bye.
You just gotta see it through.